Hey everyone, welcome to Bright and Early, the podcast for people building early stage startups. I'm your host, Brian Ray. I talk to entrepreneurs, product people, designers, and marketing pros about their experiences during the early days to help you feel just a little less crazy. My guest today is Lianna Patch. Lianna helps SaaS businesses write funny, personality-filled copy at punchlinecopy.com and snapcopy.co. She's written for FreshBooks, Manly Bands, Ghostbed, and The Contract Shop, among others, and she's here to share her approach with us today. Lianna, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah, completely my pleasure, and looking forward to getting to know you a little bit better and hearing everything that you've got to share. And so for folks who might not know you, just give us a real quick, here's what I've been up to the past few years. Tell us a little bit about Lianna.
Sure. So I'm a conversion copywriter, which basically just means instead of pulling magical words out of my butt, I do some qualitative research to get to know the audience and the customers. And then my specific focus within conversion copy is humor copy. So how can we use humor to improve relationships and decrease anxiety and just make your people really, really excited to be connected with you?
Yeah, that makes sense intuitively that humorous business copy or that humor in business is a good idea, but there are all these obstacles or objections I'm sure that you hear on a pretty regular basis when someone says, "Hey, we need a conversion copywriter," and then you say, "Yeah, I can help you with that." Also, we should include a lot of jokes in there. How's that usually go for you?
Well, luckily the people who are coming to me, they're coming to me. So they're like, okay, I've already decided that I want to start trying to incorporate humor. But the biggest, I think, reluctance comes from not wanting to make your audience feel like you don't take them or their time seriously, which is a super valid concern. You don't want to ever make anybody feel like you're wasting their time. You're just joking around and that you're not actually here to provide value. So the goal is to figure out what the balance is between straightforward, very goal-focused copy and that relationship building, anxiety alleviating, sort of filigree. How can we decorate the edges?
Yeah. What's your background? How did you get into writing specifically humor-focused copywriting?
I had been writing for, I think, 6 or 7 years and just sort of not sure what I'm doing. I was editing a bunch of publications and I wrote about an improv theater and I was invited to go take a class. And I had actually tried a couple stand-up open mics before that. So I was interested in comedy. Yeah. Everyone has that reaction to stand-up. They say, "Oh, I could never do it." And I'm like, no, you totally can. It's people who say, "Oh, I would crush that suck."
Oh, that's hilarious.
If you have reluctance, you're probably going to be funny on stage.
Okay. So it's through you were writing about an improv and.
Yeah. So I tried stand-up mostly because I went to an open mic and I was like, wow, I could do better than that, which is a very competitive and not great way to think about life. And then I wrote about the improv theater and I started doing those classes and just fell in love with that. And it all came together when I had a great mentor. And I was like, man, I love comedy and I wish there was just some way that I could be funny or write funny copy. And she was just like, well, why can't you? And I was like, oh, head explosion, And so I rebranded about 4 months later, maybe 5 months later. And I was like, this is what I do now. Hopefully people like it. And they did.
Nice. So did you, how'd you start getting the word out? Was it mostly through your network and word of mouth, or how'd you start getting your first clients?
I think referrals were definitely helpful. And then I was already doing a little bit of speaking, but once I figured out that I wanted to investigate humor from a psychological standpoint, I put together what I guess I would call my flagship talk. And it's, basically how, why, and where to use humor in your marketing copy. So that was pretty popular. And I've given that talk a bunch of times. And that's turned out to be a really nice way to sort of evangelize my own work while educating people and giving them something they can go home and use.
Yeah, cool. Is that available anywhere online, or do we have to find you in person to that talk?
I think it is. I want to say there's a recording from MicroConf. That was the first time I gave that talk. I think it was MicroConf Growth 2018.
Okay.
And I know they just released all those recordings from past years. So it may be there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna find that, and I'll be sure to link to it in the show notes, people.
It was a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Do you still do any like improv comedy or stand up in your free time these days?
I do. Yeah, I do. I try to make time for it. Obviously, it's hard if you're letting your schedule go past 7 in the evening work-wise, which I'm guilty of doing. Yeah. But I try to go to open mics, to say yes when I'm asked to be on a show, so that I'm actually practicing what I preach. And I find that I'll have little insights here and there, like, oh, I should tell this to my people, or I should email this to my list. Yeah, I want to be a person that practices instead of just like doing a thing once and then talking about it for 20 years.
That's really fascinating. I mean, so do you find that is it improv or stand up or both that you do? Both.
Yeah.
Do you learn, do you gain and learn things from that experience that help, that inform the way you run your business?
Yeah, I think they both support each other. I think the biggest shift when I started, writing humor copy, it was like a burden was lifted from my shoulders in terms of interacting with prospects and clients, because I just got to be myself. And I had this reason now to be authentic. And that's such a buzzword, but to crack a joke here and there, or just to be straightforward versus writing in this quote unquote businessy way, because that wasn't who I was anymore. And being that person on stage just kind of reinforces, being that person on calls or in the inbox. And I find that I get so much more of a genuine reaction out of people, the people who really connect with me. Like if I hop on a Zoom call with a prospect and we just banter back and forth about, the weather while we're getting to know each other, they always tend to be my best clients because they want to work with somebody fun. Mm-hmm. Or someone who can pretend to be fun most of the time.
Well, so that's what is kind of interesting to me as I was, doing some research for this interview and looking at your work, that I gotta say, I have this feeling about myself, because that's much more how I am in real life. Like, I'm not trying to, say that I'm definitely not somebody who's going to say I could get up on stage and crush it.
But you should.
But like in a group of friends hanging out, like it's pretty common that like I'm either the funny one or one of the funny ones. Like that's how my friends would describe me.
Yeah.
Landing pretty good jokes, except as soon as I like get into my, consulting and business side of things, I just completely business up. And so like, how do you help your clients get over that? Or what sort of advice do you give to people who say, man, yeah, I do want to be my more authentic self in my marketing copy, business copy, etc.
Yeah, well, I point to the actual well-researched benefits of judicious use of humor. So it's not just like throwing in a joke because I feel like it, or throwing in a joke that's totally irrelevant to the audience. It's, okay, if we, have a pun in the subject line, it's probably going to get more opens for this email. And if we make a joke here, about like an objection they might have, that humor should release some of the tension and the anxiety they feel about that objection and help them know, hey, we understand you. So it's going through, any copy that I might write for them and saying, here's why we're using humor at this point, especially for clients who are a little more nervous. Some clients are just like, make it crazy. Don't explain it. Just write something whack. And I'm like, great, I love you. Yeah. So we have a good time. But I think any copywriter should be able to point to their strategic decision-making behind every choice they make. And so being able to back up jokes and asides and GIFs and emojis with, actual concrete, well-researched reasons is really helpful for talking people down.
So, and I'm sure there's like a spectrum of, or I'm assuming anyway, from business to casual joking to like full on stand-up comic. And so that, and we can kind of think of brands that span that spectrum. So what advice do you give to people who are trying to find their voice or their product's voice and learning where they land on that spectrum?
So because I have this, research approach, I say, let's research your sense of humor and your audience's sense of humor and find out what things appeal to both of y'all. See where the overlap is. So it can be as simple as saying, who's your go-to stand-up comic? Like if there's a new special coming out on Netflix, who do you listen to, or who do you watch right away? And what comic strips did you grow up with? What kinds of things do you just find funny? Like what's your favorite comedy movie or series? And then what does your audience have to say to those same questions? And where's the overlap? Because that's going to be the area that feels most natural to you and has the biggest effect on them, because they're discovering this like shared taste with you. And that, gives you a pool of references to draw from, and maybe some like GIFs. If you know that you like The Office and they like The Office, well, use an Office GIF, like instant win. Just kind of a risk reducer.
So how do you do that? That work of finding what is my audience's sense of humor? How do you go about actually pulling that out?
With some clients, I actually put together like a little survey or quiz for them. Okay. Because most of my clients tend to be like, okay, we're coming at it from the brand voice side. We don't really care what, the audience, we just want it to feel authentic to us and we think it will gel with them. I have a humor quiz that I ask clients to take, and it's pretty fun. It's like, which of these memes is your favorite? Who's your favorite stand-up? And like, pick your favorite joke. One of the jokes on this, and I just have to tell you this because it's my favorite. It's sort of dark and absurd, right? So there's different styles of humor. There's like wholesome and uplifting and very witty and highbrow, and then there's dark and morbid. And it's just a one-liner. And it's, ever noticed that glass tastes like blood? And I don't know who came up with that, but it's like my favorite thing. So I have them take that and I see what their results are. And I know where they fall on like the spectrum of just like goofy and uplifting to like really weird and dark.
Okay. So, so that's kind of helping to get to know the sense of humor of the writer. Right? Am I hearing that right? Or
the brand? Yeah.
Okay. So what would I do if I've got a suite of clients or a batch of customers? I'm thinking if we were going to experiment with or do some research on building out a new feature of a product, then we would get a batch of 5 to 8 of our best customers, and we would ask them about their workflow, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So, but here, if I'm saying, okay, we're going to start being more our authentic selves, and but we got to make sure that like our people are serious, they're doing serious business. We can't just go like dropping F-bombs and Batman GIFs all of a sudden.
Yeah.
But maybe we can roll something in there. What sort of customer research, what sort of outreach can we do prior to testing the audience themselves?
So that's a really good point. The kind of general research that you're doing with your audience can also inspire humor or let you know what to joke about. So if you're asking, hey, what's your biggest frustration with your current SaaS that you use to solve this problem? We're like, what problem are you trying to solve with this SaaS? But I tend to focus on strong emotions, right? So like, what makes you happiest about your current solution, or what would make you really happy if you started using our app, or what's the biggest problem that you have? And then you can use those as jumping off points for jokes. So if they're frustrated with their current calendar solution, what does that frustration look like, and how can you sort of heighten that to its comedic extreme? So your current calendar software is so unintuitive that you might as well be creating your own paper from leaves and sticks outside, and then writing in blood and sending it by messenger pigeon to your meeting recipients. That's a lot. That's that's probably too much. But imagine that I said a funny thing there, and that's what.
Are there times where you recommend to your clients like, hey, flag this part of the customer journey or flag this email as like, do not joke about this topic?
Yes. So anywhere that people are going to be really upset and just looking for an answer, I have seen customer support autoresponder emails, kind of the ones that are like, hey, we got your message, we'll get back to you soon, that are funny, but it's a really tough line to walk, right? Because that's all well and good if someone has a non-time sensitive issue and you're like, hey, like we're just off eating bagels together, like we'll be back soon. But if they're really upset and they want to talk to someone right away, they are not receptive to the joke. And so one of the things that I try to figure out at various stages of the quote unquote funnel is what state of mind people are in. And there's this theory of humor that we're constantly switching between two states of mind, the telic mode and the paratelic mode. So telic is very goal focused. You just want to get stuff done and you're not really receptive to humor. And paratelic is where you're much more open to levity and jokes and like having a good time. Mm-hmm. So if somebody is in that goal focused state, you're not going to get the best reception for your joke and you actually might make them angry. But if, you're just building a relationship at that stage of the funnel, then that's probably a good time to work in some humor.
Yeah. As you're talking, it reminds me, I have a good friend who is like serious Disney fan, like runs marathons there all the time.
Wow.
Even at this point, has a YouTube channel that's about, Disney travel, like hardcore Disney person. Wow. And anybody who knows Disney, like they are super immersed. Their customers are immersed in the entire thing, and just the whole vibe. And so she, like ultimate fan, was having an issue with her credit card. I think on a like timeshare thing or something, and is on hold with the customer support representative, who is making these like, oh, it looks like, give me 1 second. Looks like Mickey may have misplaced the credit card reference here or something like that. And it's like, yo, this is my credit card.
Yeah, absolutely the wrong time.
Yeah, we're not going to play tend here that Mickey is running around shuffling things. So telic and paratelic, that's what you called it? Okay. So how are there any specific guidelines on, hey, this is for sure a goal-oriented mindset? This is like relationship building, or is that a feel thing that you have to work out as a team?
It's something that becomes easier the more that you are mapping out the various journeys. And I paused before saying like journeys and funnels because everyone has different words that they hate. But, right. As you're going through, if, for example, you're mapping out your email strategy, that the goal of the welcome email is to get them back into the app, right? So, one goal per email, you might make a little joke around it, but you don't want to distract them from clicking that link or that button, right? Or whatever the goal of your welcome email is, probably to get them back in there. Yeah. And then you might have an email after that that's just like, hey, get to know us, get to know what we can do, like reinforce the great decision you've made starting your free trial. And then email number 3 might be, go do your first thing, go activate yourself inside the app. So you might have more humor in email 2 because you have more room for it. But because you're asking them to focus on a goal in email 3, get out of your own way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
is this making sense?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I'm again, like I mentioned towards the top of the interview, I feel like this is completely where I'm at right now and trying to think through, how to pull this into a little bit more of my day to day. But so for people who are listening right now, and maybe they've even got their products landing page up right now. Are there some things that they should scan through to see, like either something that they're doing wrong that you see on such a super regular basis, like very tactical, hey, don't do this, I see this all the time and it's bad, or areas that they can look through that flow to say, oh, hey, this is a common type of pitch, and here's where punching it up with a little bit of humor statistically is going to make it land a little bit better.
Yeah. So actually, I just, my business partner at Snap and I just recorded this video about like 5 things to look at in your landing page copy without even really writing anything.
Okay, cool.
And the first quickest win thing is to just step away from your screen, look at your page and see if you have any walls of text going on. So I think a lot of us are still trained in this, like, college paper style of writing where we have the opening sentence and the 3 body sentences and the like conclusion. But it's actually easier for the human eye to process shorter paragraphs and thinner column widths, you know? So if you're writing these massive screeds and they go all the way from one side of the screen to the other, then it's going to be harder for your person to just visually parse that. Mm-hmm. So formatting is the first thing. Like, make sure if you step away, you can still read. You can like read paragraphs. The body copy font isn't too small. Make sure you've got sub headlines or section headers down the page, and that if you weren't going to read any of the body copy, you still know what the page was trying to sell you or inform you on by the time you got to the bottom. Like, tell a story down the page with the crossheads or subheads. What else? Don't use stock images. They will really kill trust. People can tell, even if you have like a really good stock photo, we can tell. If it's supposed to be like a place where, hey, here's our team, and it's, you know, Vince Vaughn in a suit. I love those. So yeah, if you can replace with genuine images, I like to say also use image captions, because if you have a caption on an image, people will almost always read it. So that's my favorite place to put in a joke.
Interesting.
So if it's like a photo of the team and you have a caption on the image, it could be like, here's the team on our retreat in Barcelona, parentheses, you know, we lost Julian that day, you know, RIP or something like that. I don't know. I'm very morbid today. And then if my favorite thing to do on a landing page, because presumably you know a little bit more about the traffic on that page. If it's a targeted landing page with a single call to action, you're sending traffic there. You know a little bit more about that traffic than just like random cold strangers who land on your homepage. So you should know a little bit more about what humor is going to resonate with them. So if they're reading through the body copy, and you know about their like potential frustrations, go ahead and add a joke about those frustrations in the body copy to reward them for reading closely. So they should be able to get the point of the page by just reading the scanning, but to reward people who are not scanners, you know, add a joke here and there, like congratulate them for continuing to read.
That's super helpful. Is there, is that online somewhere?
Is it? Good question.
I'll look, and listeners, if it is, it'll be in the show notes.
I think it is, and I will look too, because that's probably something I should know.
No,
I know we recorded it.
No, I'm wanting to dig in on that.
Yeah.
Hey friends, this is a great time to pause and let you know that Bright and Early is brought to you by Transistor.fm. Transistor offers you professional podcast hosting and analytics. They host this very podcast that you're listening to right now. And my friends, I got to tell you, it could not be easier. I can tell you from personal experience. As you also probably know, podcasting is becoming one of the best ways to develop a closer relationship with your audience. And so if you're thinking about starting a podcast, trust me, look no further. Just visit transistor.fm, and if you decide to sign up, let them know that Brian sent you. Okay, so if I had, we've talked about this a bit, but I want to get super specific and tactical. So if I had zero budget to invest in copywriting in the early stages, then how would you recommend I be spending my time to punch up my copywriting?
Man, or punch it up, or just like start doing it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Talking to people, which I know is not the answer that a lot of introverted software founders want to hear. And like, I feel you on that, because I get drained by talking to people. Present company accepted, of course, Brian. This is just filling my cup. It is. So, you know, see if you can get on a call with people, ask for 20-minute conversations, and ask those emotionally based, open-ended questions that will give you a sense of what people know about their own problems and where they are in the stage of trying to solve it, what they would really want from your product. Hopefully they won't alert you to any competitors that are already just doing what you're trying to do, because that happens sometimes, where they're like, oh, you're doing this, so it's exactly this other thing, and you're like, shit. So, you know, so some of that, like more product market research is helpful. But those calls will be really helpful, because if you do enough of them, and I would say like around 5 to 10, you should start to hear the same kinds of messages being repeated. and you'll begin to understand like, oh, if I have a landing page asking for a free trial, I need to start by addressing the problem and maybe even explaining the problem because people don't know they have it. Or you might find out people already know they have this problem. It's very well established. We don't need to waste too much time on that. We should just get right to how we can solve it.
So then if I had, from a little bit more established, I've got between like 10 and 20K to invest in improving the copywriting on my site by working with somebody like you, how would we get started?
Well, I would invoice you for 20K and then I would move out of the States.
Yeah, smart.
No,
smart.
Just kidding. I would ask a bunch of questions first, obviously, about what kind of baseline conversions you have and what you've been tracking. We talk about where it makes the most sense to focus. So for me, I like to work around the revenue and retention sides of things. There's people who specialize in acquisition. If we're talking about like pirate metrics, right? The R. Yeah. I'm at the tail end of the sequence because I really like to be involved in sales and bringing people back for more sales or more value. So I tend to focus there, and I work with e-commerce along with SaaS. So converting free trial to paid, I love writing those kinds of things. Getting people back into the app with win-back sequences if they've lapsed and they've stopped using. Writing transactional emails and dunning emails that are different from what you'd expect and kind of joyful. Typeform does this really well. If your credit card, I think if it's a credit card has a problem or the credit card's about to expire, Typeform doesn't just say, hey, your credit card's going to expire, go here and update it so we can continue to charge you $35 a month for, who knows what. Yeah. That's how I feel when I get that invoice. They say, Houston, we have a problem. That's the subject line. And the body copy is like, sorry to interrupt you, sipping a margarita and lying on the beach, but we noticed that your card expiration is coming up. So something that's not offensive and not distracting from the point of the email, but lighthearted, right? Because it can feel like a lot of pressure. Hey, update your card information. We want your money. And people are like, oh, no. But it's like, hey, you're still getting value from us. Like, we're all people here. Go ahead and give us your credit card so we can keep rolling.
Yeah. There may not be an answer here, but something you said just made me think because you tend to focus more on the trial to paid side of things. Is that because that's strictly that's your personal preference and you just really enjoy that? Or is there any indication that, using humor and personality at the trial to paid side of the funnel as opposed to like, random visitor to trial, is it more effective at that point or nah?
I think it's just my personal preference, and it's more measurable, right? If people are just starting out, they're probably not tracking every single metric, but you're definitely tracking trial to paid.
Yeah, for sure. Closer to the money. Last thought, and thanks again so much for your time today, Lianna. But working for yourself, working on a business can be super stressful. Are there any practices to manage your own stress that you found helpful that you want to share?
Oh, that I found helpful or that I consistently do? My therapist would have something to say here.
Exactly what you mean.
Yeah. She was like, I saw her this week and she was like, it sounds like you know what to do to make things easier for yourself and then you deliberately don't do them. And I was like, yeah, let's dig into that, Marley. I like having my own schedule. I like to time block my projects. That's helpful for me to know what's coming up and like make sure I've given myself enough time to work on a thing. I struggle with anxiety and depression like every single person who does comedy, right? So there's a lot of needing to give myself a break and maybe be creative about like, if I'm just not going to make progress on a given task today, I need to find another task from tomorrow or the day after that I do feel like I can do. So I think flexibility and practicing self-kindness are kind of integral to being able to do my best work.
Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being open about that. So where can listeners find and follow you online? And is there a helpful kit around anything that we've spoken about today that you'd love to share? Anything that you've got to offer?
Oh, well, in fact, there is a helpful kit around. What a prescient question. So I am obnoxiously on Twitter. It may not be for everyone, but that's my main platform of choice.
All right.
At Punchline Copy. I very rarely email my list, but you can sign up for that at punchlinecopy.com, and it's usually kind of fun. We do email sometimes at snapcopy.co, and we just put together this voice of customer research and messaging kit that is free at SnapCopy. So basically, if you have no budget, but you want to get to know your people and get to know the messages and even verbatim swipe copy that you should use, here are some interview questions you can use. Here are some survey questions you can send. We've even got emails to send the survey to your people. And then there's a framework with detailed instructions on how to pull meaning from that raw data that you collect. Yeah.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes.
Cool.
I'll look that up. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. My guest today has been Lianna Patch. Lianna, thanks again for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Settled in with another glass of tasty kombucha this week. And just want to say, if you're listening to this while you are at the gym or on a jog, good for you, and you can do it. Quick note, Lianna mentioned that her 2018 MicroConf talk, it is actually not available for free just yet. They have not released those videos, but you can purchase the 2018 bundle for $49 if you want. I think it's 15 hours or so worth of pretty high quality conference talks from people you will definitely recognize. So I'll put a link to that if you are interested. Primary takeaway for me from this entire interview is just the importance of authenticity and being true to yourself and to your own voice. And so definitely, Lianna has great recommendations for why humor in the appropriate time and place is scientifically more effective to be memorable and to be persuasive in times. I think what's important to keep in mind if you are personally feeling like it doesn't entirely fit with your personality, the overarching takeaway that we can all get from this is the importance of authenticity and being memorable, whether in voice or in design or in your point of view, just the importance of being memorable, because bland copy on a bland landing page, or a typical landing page that looks like 80% of everything else that launched on Product Hunt yesterday, that isn't memorable anymore. And it was good to talk to Lianna and hear her passion for humorous copy and for just adding delight, just sprinkling delight all over the place, all over the business, in transactional emails, on your landing page, in win back campaigns, just sprinkling some fun, having fun throughout it. That is her whole entire point of view. That is her position. And for the right company, with the right customer, in appropriate contexts, for sure, that is the way to go. What is also true is that really, no matter the company, the customer, or the context, or the point of view, the important thing is being memorable. And so I think that is the primary, just in trying to think through it, in trying to find a lesson for anyone who is listening to this, regardless of your stage of business, or rather your customer, your business type. What can the takeaway be for all of us, for all of you? That's what I was thinking through. For me personally, it really is. You heard me say this in the interview. I am first of all, I just really hate my website right now. As it is, it's like a cobbler's kids shoes situation for sure. Aside from like that part of it, like it just doesn't sound and feel like me. This is something that I've just struggled with it for so long, and I don't remember which episode it was that I mentioned, trying to be better about thinking about, having one customer, like one person, one friend that I'm writing to. And I mentioned like that fantasy baseball league that I am in, writing the weekly updates for that's just so easy, and it's super entertaining. Trying to be objective, like that's the feedback that I get from the other people in the league. And like, oh man, like to be able to bring that to every aspect of your business, that should feel like play, and it should be fun. Why is that sometimes that we make it more difficult maybe than it has to be? Or why is it just more difficult than it has to be? Maybe a bit of that is like mirroring like other people's expectations or other things that you see out there. I just think it's a very fascinating observation on, business speak and talk in general, that we're all just people out here doing the thing, and a lot of times the way people talk to us, or the way that we find ourselves, slipping into some role and speaking to other people, it's not and that's not even what we're actually thinking, and it's not how we talk when we're sitting around a campfire with our friends. And so I feel like that's a big takeaway. I like the section of the conversation we were kind of talking about, like, hey, where are some areas in the customer journey, or like what types of emails should we not try? Just don't mess around. This email actually should be kind of bland and businessy and to the point. I think that's important. And I was trying to find, y'all, there. I swear I thought it was MailChimp. But for all of my Googling skills, I was not able to find it. That there was if one of you find this and tweet it to me, I will be so grateful. But MailChimp has a really great voice and tone guide, where they just kind of talk through, like, here's how we think about like our tone of voice in this type of email or in this type of page or whatever. It's a great resource if you geek out on writing. That's great. But that's not the one I was looking for. There is one, and I really thought that it was MailChimp. I was so convinced that I actually went into the Wayback Machine on their voice and tone guide, because I was like, it didn't used to look like this, and it has looked the way that it does today since like 2005 or something. So I was wrong on that. But the navigation menu on the left, it was like a gradient spectrum from green to yellow to red, where it was basically like each of those areas was saying, here is the mood of the customer right now, and so your tone of voice needs to sound like this. And it was kind of basically talking through that, like, when the customer is feeling this way, when they are in this, these are the emotions that they're expressing, this is how you want to reply. And I can't find it. It would be the perfect show note for this particular interview. And I'm going to keep looking for it. Just another, it's just kind of good advice that in general, like you match the energy level of your customer and where they're at. And if they're, it's kind of loose and playful and they're just kind of browsing, it's completely cool to be casual. If there's an issue with their credit card, then match that level of seriousness. And so those are some good thoughts that I've walked away from this interview with. I would love to hear what you all think. You can please reach out to me and introduce yourself on Twitter. I'm B Ray. That's BRHEA. B as in ball, R as in rock, H as in Hedberg, E as in Elliot, and A as in Arnett. If you've got a quick minute just to scroll on down and leave a 5-star rating or review for this podcast, that would sure mean a lot to me. You can go to brightandearlypodcast.com. Sign up for my newsletter. You'll get an email once a week or so-ish with thoughts similar to this one, and would love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Brian Ray.